is impossible. The word itself says I'm possible. This is according to Audrey Hepburn. Hello and welcome to the Fifth Estate Show. This is where we talk about development issues and the activities of non-governmental organizations in Nigeria. I am Folusho Oluwole, your host on the show. We have Ms. Mojirayo Ogunlana, who is the Executive Director of DG Civic Initiative. She's also a digital media and gender rights advocate. She has over 12 years experience in legal practice, and she will be discussing with us issues around press freedom in Nigeria, specifically with the arrest and release of Mr. Daniel Ojukwu, who was picked up by members of the operatives of the intelligence response team of the Inspector General of the Police. Good day, ma'am. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. Let's dive into the conversation. Do you think, what is, in your own opinion, what is the current state of media freedom in Nigeria, especially as regards to the digital space? How would you characterize the level of support of media freedom? And will Nigeria ever reach international standards of press freedom?
Okay, international standards, we'll get there. Okay, so generally when it comes to the atmosphere, media freedom, Nigeria is a restricted space. Now we have this kind of appearance that everything is good, but in all earnest, it's not. Why would I say that? I've noticed that there is a censorship cloud over Nigerians, and it has been there since 2015. I'm
around when Twitter ban?
No, Twitter ban came later.
Yes, okay.
But I'm just saying around the period when President Muhammadu Buhari took over, and he had Lai Mohammed, who we felt that it was coming from the media, so he should have more understanding on the nuances, and be able to really, come from that perspective that I know about this environment I'm in that space. So as the Minister of Information, it was obvious that there was this war against media freedom, and I want to look at it from the perspective that maybe it's an APC thing, like when you look at the background of the people who are the forerunners of APC right now, you will notice that most of them were those who had opportunity to express themselves freely, who had opportunity to organize, and who had opportunity to be to ask for accountability from governments. If you know very well the way they pushed against President Jonathan, was a very serious push, and But now I'm seeing that media can't report easily, can't report freely under this APC regime that has stretched onto this 2024. And so you see a media that is afraid of being arrested and charged, for instance, for cyber crimes, or you see a media that is afraid of being charged for terrorism. You see a media that is being, that is afraid of being charged for criminal defamation. And this is the reality for a lot of media. In fact, I've seen a journalist who was taken to court, in a civil court, and the past government official who actually instituted that case was asking for 100 million naira from a journalist, and this is an online paper. So I see that as much as the way the internet came in, it came in with so much promise and so much progress and advancements, an opportunity for Nigeria to be able to,
uplift its standards.
That way, compete, with Western governments, because we have a very good, rich number of resources when it comes to human resources in Nigeria. People who are very brilliant, technological savvy and all that. So you see that what the internet did for us was that it gave people the power to be able to express themselves. It gave them, a lot of people wanted to have a media outfit, but they couldn't afford it, especially, of course, a studio that can be this beautiful and all that. But they were able to now, launch online and be able to report and be able to do what they love. You know, I can give you an example of the Wiki Times journalist, Taruna. He is very happy because he is able to do what he wants to do. He sees a lot of problems in Bauchi State, and he wants to report on it. He wants everybody to know that this is what I'm seeing. Government has paid for this project, said, oh, do this thing, but nobody is doing it. But this is somebody that a lot of cases have been taken against him. You know, it's very sad, because not only are you fighting against the government, because the government doesn't want you to hold it accountable, now you are now fighting against the people themselves, because the people do not understand. They are driven by the narratives that the politicians have been able to, you know, to present. You know, like the narratives that we as women we have experienced over time. You know, they say these things. Women don't support women, for instance, but we know that it's a lie. Women do support each other. So they've done that narrative too, that say, oh, journalists, they're always reporting falsehood. But the tool for any journalist is that truth. And so they have it. A lot of people do have it, but of course, we also know that there's still a downside to some media organizations. We do know that.
Okay, so from all you said, I think there seems to be a confusion on surrounding media freedom, especially when you're talking about digital space. Because if you look at the guys in mainstream media, they seem to not have problems. Especially recently, if you notice, rarely do they have issues of breaking laws.
Because they are self-censoring. That is the problem. That was what, you know, Buhari initiated when he got, you know, a president goes into the midst of lawyers at a conference in 2018 and says boldly that we are going to suspend, if push comes to shove, we will suspend the rule of law for national security. There is no democratic country where that is being expressed. When there is a national security, the rule of law must also be upheld, because the rule of law is what keeps everything sane. So when, you know, for instance, you are aware of the Israel-Gaza issue. Now, no matter how the Israel-Gaza issue, why are people making noise? People are making noise because there is no rule of law. That we know that you're in a war situation, but why are you going against the civilians? You should be going against the people who are armed and who are ready to, you know, fight back. So that is exactly how it is. No matter how there is a breakdown of law and order, and that national security is at risk, the rule of law must always be prioritized. So what is happening now is that in the digital space, you see governments very eager to censor, very eager to curtail rights, but not eager to, for instance, promote the part of the constitution that says that everybody has the right to freely express themselves. You know, the media can actually be over any, disseminate over any medium and all that. But they keep forgetting that proviso that says what is necessary in a democratic society. So in a democratic society, is it proportional to be, to shut down the Twitter, for instance? Is it a proportionate measure to address issues of national security? It isn't. Because you can't shut down the whole of Nigeria because, for instance, some people are rioting in a particular place. Or you say, okay, they're rioting in Wuse, we're going to shut down the whole of Wuse environment. It's not practical. But they are trying to do this because they feel that, oh, it's the internet space. We have the technology, we can do what we want to do, you know. So that's those are the things. This is the confusion that I feel that governments wants people to think that they're having, because they are not confused. Government officials are not confused. They just don't want to be accountable.
Let's talk about, when you look at countries that form the EU, every day there's increasing support for press freedom. Is the reverse the case in Nigeria?
I think the reverse is the case in Nigeria. Not only Nigeria, because if you look at West Africa, in fact, Africa, now I'll give you an example. So in 2017, there was an total shutdown of the internet in Togo. That was what took us to court and in 2018. And then the judgment came out that the ECOWAS court said, no, you cannot shut down the internet, because the internet is a derivative right to freedom of expression. So it's part of freedom of expression. It gives you the medium to express yourself freely. So you can't shut it down. That was the judgment of the ECOWAS court. Meanwhile, in our neighbor Cameroon, those ones still shut down the internet, despite I know that they don't belong to the West African region. They still shut down the internet. While they were shutting down, there were multiple shutdowns in Uganda, Tanzania, and now we come to West Africa. Just last year, 1st of June, there was shutdown of internet in Senegal. And Senegal has always been known as the foremost when it comes to press freedom, actually, because we have had issues where journalists who were running from the Yaya Jammeh, that the Gambia, when they were running from Yaya Jammeh, Senegal was their safe haven. They could, yes, that was their exile land. They could hide there. Yes, they hide there, and they don't even need to go all the way to the US or something. They were protected, and I know, you know, so it's unfortunate that Europe has, I think they've come of age, or should I maybe they've seen what maybe we are not seeing, because you see a very big fight from UNESCO. UNESCO is championing press freedom, and you see them, you know, also aligning. Europe is aligning, and you see beautiful judgments coming from the European Court of Human Rights. Beautiful judgments, and I believe that the ECOWAS Court has been able to match that kind of intelligence and that kind of judicial skill. I wanted to say judicial dexterity, but our judges on the regional level, the ECOWAS courts, they've been amazing. Wow. And I can tell you for free, the present government wants to come again, you know, the committee of governments, they want to now sort of like curtail the power of the ECOWAS court. Now, they want to try and tweak the rules in a way that if you do not exhaust all your issues within your national country, you cannot bring a case to ECOWAS court. They know what that is going to do to the ECOWAS court. It's going to cripple the effectiveness of ECOWAS court. And that is one of the things that, you know, can affect digital rights. It's going to affect digital rights because we have seen, maybe people will say it's not possible, but if you have seen a Twitter that was shut down for 222 days, government unapologetic, you have seen a situation of similarly NSAS, where that is also an issue of civic space, whereby there were issues that it was clear. There was a tribunal that was set up, the Okwabi panel in Lagos, where they said actually people died or this thing happened, and you saw the government say no, this did not happen. Now, and then you now see cases of like 5 states in Nigeria: Sokoto, Zamfara, Kaduna, Gombe, I think, Bauchi. Like those states. Now we saw there was shutdown, total telecommunication shutdown for over a month. And when people like us who want the courts to hold government accountable, we approach the courts and we said, no, this is wrong. And the courts are not, you know, not even holding in our favor, you know, shutting people out. Yes. When you see the shutting down of 1 month, you can't use your telephone.
It affects a lot of businesses.
Media could not work. They could not report. If there were human rights abuses, nobody is going to be reporting on these things. So human rights abuses will just go. That is the reality they want us to live with. Like, let's do these things and go away with it. So that Daniel's example is a clear case of what the government would like. Like, they just pick somebody up and do whatever they like with the person. You people should just take it like that. If nobody had seen Daniel would have ended up like one journalist who had gone through this in the past. His name is Jones Zabiri. When Jones Zabiri in 2016 was removed from circulation, he was removed in the presence of his family by men wearing black and all that, you know, FT men with guns and everything. They went into his office, removed his laptop, his phones, every gadget. They never returned these things, and they took him away for 2 years and 6 months. Nobody saw him. From Bayelsa to DSS quarters in Abuja. Nobody saw this guy for 2 years and 6 months. So by the time he was coming out, he has lost his confidence. He had lost his ability to fight. They even told him to keep quiet and not talk about, you know, this is the reality. This man was a journalist that was reporting something online. And in fact, what he even reported that got in there was a very funny case. It was something that they could trace to another source. He said, I got this news from this source. And now the source that he got it from, Jackson, I've forgotten his first name. Is always online, due process man like that. He's always saying it's due process. They got it, but they could not get him because that one is not Nigeria. That one has taken asylum in some country for years. So they couldn't get him, so they pick a scapegoat. So that's what they want. They don't want people to be able to freely express themselves in the digital space. And that is not good for our democracy. It is really, really crippling for our democracy. It means that we are tilting more towards autocracy. And we are tilting more towards totalitarianism. We don't need that kind of thing. And it makes me wonder sometimes, is it that because we have had more years dealing with the military system? Is that what is affecting our mindset? But we had more freedom, in quotes, during the military period. That's freedom of the media. the media were able to engage very actively,
and report a lot that was going on
against the military. So why can't we do it now
in democracy?
Civilian?
Yeah.
Hello and welcome to Akweya Language on Akweya TV. My name is Lucy A. Ms. Ikoku. Good morning. Ba nomi. Repeat after me. Good morning. Ba nomi. Hello. Welcome to Akweya Language Lesson on Akweya TV.
So, all these things you just said makes me wonder what do you think when you look at the Digital Act, do you think there should be clearer guidelines and actions on reporting news when it comes to censorship and all of that? Also putting in mind the role of the media as another realm of the estates that has been put in place to checkmate the other realms.
So we know clearly that the role of the media is to hold government accountable. And you have already said it, they are the fourth estate of the realm. And their duty and their responsibility is to the public, because we keep saying it's public interest. That's what they do. And now, in their public interest, of course, they owe us a duty to be ethical. Media, there's no two way around it. And what is the ethical part of it? First and foremost, what you are reporting must be the truth. And so, if you can report the truth, you have already passed a milestone. And I believe that when it comes to regulation of media, the politicians cannot understand what it means to put media in check. It's only media that can put media in check. So media needs to have a formidable coalition or network, whether it is offline or online. That network that can help them to self-regulate. We already have the Nigerian
Union of Journalists. We have bodies.
Yes, we have that. We have the Nigeria Press Council that gives the ethics of journalism. They are stated there. You can see 9 beautiful ethics that the journalist must comply with, that you shouldn't breach people's privacy and all that. These things are real. Now, for the online media, there is no need for any government to be thinking of drafting new laws and formulating new things. You already inherited a lot of colonial rules already, which, interestingly, when you look at some of their provisions, they have already covered where somebody breaches the let's say, for instance, ethics of journalism. Even when you are online, it's there. Because the rules that apply offline also apply online, because you're in this space. Yeah. So I don't see any need for any special regulation from government. What government should be doing more is having multi-stakeholder engagements. Just keep having engagements with media. Do you know, if you sit with media, you sit with different organizations and tell them, how do we ensure that everything in the space is sane, and that things are not going out of hand? There's a way you could have that conversation. Have the conversation with digital rights experts. Ask conversation, because the more you censor, the more truth will be missing, and the more information, the right information will not go out. And of course, that would also be counterproductive to our economic state, because the young ones who want to develop contents to compete with their mates in other climes, they cannot do that because they are restricted. And that's why you see them, they have the mindset that, oh, I want to jackpot, I want to go to Canada. They don't have that sense of nationhood that they should have, because you keep making everywhere restrictive for them. So it doesn't work that way.
So I was going to ask you how we're going to address some of the challenges, but I see that you've already addressed that. So I'm going to ask you now, how can international corporations and bodies contribute to upholding?
The best things that I've always canvassed for is sanctions. I think with more sanctions, or with bold sanctions, because a lot of times they run away from sanction. It was one of the things that we tried to canvass during the NSAS thing, because after the CNN reports which proved that there were live rounds that that was shot into this into the space. We thought of, okay, what then if you knew that there were live rounds, how do you sanction Nigeria? But the truth is this: there is a problem with diplomacy, or everybody is thinking about their selfish interests. What do I benefit from a country like Nigeria? Do you understand? Yeah. So it's more of people, governments all over the world thinking about themselves and not really about
the good of the average person.
I don't want to use some wonderful words here, but let's just keep it. They don't really care about the people. They just want what is in their own interest, what will benefit their own economy, what will benefit their own people. So that remains a problem. And imagine if the international community is focused. For instance, you saw the way they've not been able to hold Israel accountable like that. You see, you just different people raising issues from left, from right.
They also brought the issue of international courts, but they could not pin.
But there's nothing really that they're doing. So that's where that diplomacy, and the issue of sovereignty, every government has the right to do that. So that will always be a problem. But we should still state it that international community needs to sanction where it is necessary. For instance, do visa ban for government or people, politicians who are violating people's rights. When you do that, then of course help us to embellish the truth. Like international organizations can fund research within the country, because if you are looking at it that an investigative journalist, for instance, it's really hard to be an investigative journalist
because there are no funds available.
It's very expensive. So imagine if international organizations like UNESCO, you can apply to them freely and really do real groundwork that exposes human rights violations or issues of social justice. Of course, then that also helps at the end of the day. And then on the issue of international standards, the international standards have always been clear. Fundamental rights are fundamental rights. And then even Section 39, even as they say that Section 39 of the Constitution of the Federation, that's right to freely express an opinion, disseminate, the right to media, to, or press, that these things are not in themselves unlimited, that they can be restricted. But there's still the truth that whatever you want to do to curtail freedom of expression, that's whatever you want to do to curtail the whole of Section 39, there must be a law in place. And that law must pursue a legitimate aim. It's not that after it pursues, when you have a law in place, then it goes. It's a cumulative thing. The legitimate aim must follow the rule, or that's the law that is already in place. And not only that, it must be necessary in a democratic society. And whatever measure you want to use in restricting freedom of expression, you must make sure that it is proportionate to the end that you want to, achieve, the interests that you want to protect. 100%. You must make sure that they are proportionate. So the question is, can a lot of the measures that are being taken by government, are they proportionate? So that's the international standard. And, which every democratic society must uphold.
Let's talk about your recent contributions in the release of Mr. Daniel Ojukwu. What was your experience?
Well, I think it was just like deja vu. It was like, here we go again, Daniel was just, he was just doing his work. He was just doing his job, which everybody should, you should commend and you should applaud. And I see that there is that boldness where they do anything to just hold a journalist down and feel that there will not be a backlash. For instance, I just saw a news while I was on my way, and I saw that the same Fiji, that's FIJ, that had been saying bend there, there was this custom issue that he had been raising every day on Twitter. You say, good morning, Nigerians. Please ask custom about this gun, something. And the funniest part, I've had a journalist who unfortunately suffered from stroke, who had seen and wanted to report on, I don't know if it's the right thing to say, maybe they will come for me actually, but let's talk about it. Reports about the smuggling of arms during that Dasuke period. He saw them, but unfortunately, while in the customs compound right there, some thugs came in and beat him to pop. he lost his motor skills and all that. He went to India, tried to get... Till
Surgery.
today, we tried to sue the government, but because he had not gotten back his motor skills and it never came up.
So court cases will be difficult.
Yeah. Yes, because he's the main witness and he saw who he saw. And, you know, so imagine such a case. It went unreported. And then all of a sudden, 10 years later, another case talking about gun smuggling and all that. And I saw that the customs guys, maybe through one, they've sued now. That's what I saw on my way. So I don't even have the details. But it's quite interesting that you're suing now. But what is the defense to defamation? Truth. So that's what you present, truth. And when you're presenting your truth, you don't even need to expose your source. Your source must always be protected because that's one rule that must never be broken. And that will bring us to one thing. You know, journalists are whistleblowers. Yeah. Till date, the government has not been committed to a legislation that protects whistleblowing. So imagine when you don't have a whistleblowing legislation, that means we have a lot of stories that we have not even heard yet, that we are not even privileged to hear because the government is not sincere. That's the truth. They don't want to be held accountable. They don't want to be transparent to the people, and it's unfortunate because the power actually belongs to the people and not to the few in government.
Okay, before we close, can you tell us a little about your work in DG Civic Initiative?
Okay, yeah, DG Civic Initiative. It's a public interest NGO, and it's just was established basically to promote digital rights and the civic space. So you see that everything I've been talking about is about the civic space. Yeah. So digital rights in the sense that everybody has a right to the freedom of expression. Everyone has a right to association online. You have a right to assemble. But of course, in doing all these three, you must also be very careful about the rights of others. That you do not take for granted the rights of others. So we are doing what we are doing in DD Civic is just to promote it, to actually take on cases whenever we have a faculty of lawyers that will go to court whenever there are breaches to digital rights. And even in that vein, for private citizens that are breaching other people's rights, also, this one we call it online gender-based violence. That's against women. So what we are doing now is that women journalists who experience any form of violation online, we are giving them free legal services. So pro bono, everything is pro bono. If you want to sue the person, if it's government, bring it. We'll do it free from beginning to judgment. You don't pay a dime. You know. So I hope female journalists are listening so that they know that there is a purse that is available for them to actually leverage on. So this, any form of online bullying, anything, sextortion, whatever.
What has funding been for you?
Oh, well, funding is always a very big issue because, you know, one, you have to win the trust of people who want to give you grants. And then, of course, funny enough, it's just we see international organizations, they are more willing to fund than local organizations. And I think that's a reality for a lot of CS NGOs, actually. But funding is not that, it's not something you can access easily. Yeah. But there are a lot of plans that funding would really go a long way to help. For instance, we need to train lawyers who can actually be protectors, like defenders of the digital rights and the civic space. We need to train judges to make them understand all the issues, all the intricacies of the digital space and where their roles are, and also even train legislatures, because the members of the houses of legislation, because they need to understand that when they are coming up with strange laws, for instance, like that social media bill that they try to push the other time, vagueness is not what we need in this country. We don't need laws that will restrict further people's human rights, but rather allow the people to express themselves, to assemble freely and associate.
Thank you very much, Ma, for coming on the show.
Thank you too for having me. I appreciate you.
So it's a wrap from our end. Thank you. With the Fifth Estate Show, here are some available grant opportunities that NGOs and individuals can apply to get funds to sustain their activities. Welcome back. With a deadline of 30th June 2024, the Reach 52 is seeking expressions of interest from established growth partners, which can include community-based organizations such as NGOs and socially minded private sector firms and civil society organizations, to help them recruit and train agents. For more information, visit Reach 52 website, check for the procedures and apply. Also, with a deadline of 11th May 2024, the Jana Robust Trust Fund is providing financial resources to early career biologists and conservationists to carry out vital field conservation and research work in Africa. For more information, visit Jana Robust Trust Fund, check for the more details and apply. And this is where we end this episode of the show. Many thanks for staying with us. Don't forget to kindly follow us on all social media platforms at Tiso Media. I am Felipe Oluwole. See you on the next episode.